Axis and Allies is a board game originally created in 1984 by game designer Larry Harris and published by Milton Bradley under their Game Master series. It had the tag, "A Game of High Adventure." It featured many unique ideas that were new to board gaming. At least it would have been a novelty to the consumer market that would have only been familiar with games like Risk, Stratego, and Battleship. This is my guess, of course, but these must have been the most notable combat or war games that most people had played without taking any gaming seriously. Okay, so I'm AC88. Welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy the story. So when I was young, I had never heard of the war gaming community and had no knowledge of its history. The historical battles of the Napoleonic era were very important, and in the 1970s they were all the rage. And still to this day, while I am wrapped up in history and lore and pictures of these types of things, I really don't think I'll ever have a deep understanding of the hype that those games meant or that actual time period meant. My own personal interest in wargaming simply comes from the fact that the RPG fantasy boom came from the likes of Gary Gygax and his creation of Dungeons & Dragons. In my teen years of high school, I was really interested in getting into something deeper than just the video games and computer games that I was playing all the time. And my family was an early adopter of the PC and the internet, so I was fortuitous. In fact, I was well acquainted with real-time strategy games like Command & Conquer, Dune, Total War, and most notable of all, StarCraft. I don't remember playing a turn-based war game like Risk when I was younger. Mostly interested, like I said, in Dungeons & Dragons, the 3.5 edition. There it seemed was a golden age of fantasy. It was heavy with rules and tactics for all manners of combat, magic, and melee, with so much additional module adventures, expansive classes, and lore books that it seemed that any adventure you could think of might have a source book to draw from. It was in this sphere of gaming that I began to understand the number crunching and min-maxing basics of character design and strategy in equipment and spell choice and so forth. But as I enjoyed that with my high school friends, there was a whole other scene seemingly unbeknownst to me that was totally engaged in a different genre of number crunching, risk-taking, and desperate saves from utter defeat. This was, of course, the wargaming community. I had no real connection into it until I got to college, and an older student in his 50s told me about a few games he enjoyed as a kid when we were reminiscing about board games from our youth. He mentioned a game that I had never heard before, Axis and Allies, a war game about the events of World War II, and certainly a war worth remembering, and a lucrative genre. It seemed that there was a new World War II video game, first-person shooter, or even real-time strategy being announced or released every 6 months or so. I too was caught up in the craze and enjoyed the Medal of Honor franchise particularly. Saving Private Ryan had also released around this time, and the games were getting so advanced that they could effectively recreate the Normandy beach scene in the game. It was amazing. The Call of Duty franchise picked up the trend and continued pressing on, yet my friend's recommendation that we should play A&A never really left me. And so when we were on a summer break, by happenstance we went to the local hobby shop, and we purchased the revised edition of Axis and Allies. I had no idea that it was revised, as it was all Greek to me, but as my friend stated, this is Risk on steroids. With that admonishment, and looking forward to taking back home the game, we got some friends to join in the battle. We read the rules and assigned each player a nation to represent. I was assigned Germany, and as a first-timer, I think that was a bad choice looking back at it. Germany probably is the hardest nation to play, as so much is dependent on its first turn. What will you purchase? What will you do with Russia? How long can you hold out before the Americans really begin to tear into the Western Front? We played for about 5 hours before I had ultimately lost, though not at all without putting up a good fight. If it is any solace to new players, I'd recommend playing America or Russia or Japan first, as they have some more predictable strategies that won't be too cumbersome for new players. But again, I was so happy with the results because it felt so accurate to the real events of World War II. Japan could make a surprise Pearl Harbor attack in its first turn, and Germany could roll into with tanks and capture western Russia and applying pressure on Moscow. And the Americans could storm the beaches of Normandy. As it turned out, this is exactly what happened to me, and it was what cost me the game. Not having a clear understanding of naval combat or amphibious assaults was what cost me my first match of Axis and Allies. But although me and my teammates lost, I still went away really enjoying the game. A&A wasn't like a historical battles of Risk in which territories were just traded back and forth, with no historical grounding of the battles. They were instead more representative to the battles in World War II. Notably, not just the locations, but also the attention to detail went into even the pieces that were molded to represent the national specific items like tanks, planes, battleships, and infantry. They all looked different. And we all had such a great time that we went on to play again later the next day. I've tried to get other gamers into trying it, but I haven't had much luck. It is a big investment in time after all. The game collected dust for about 10 years. I was advancing into the Euro genre and collecting more and more interesting games and sharing them with my fiancée and now wife. And I enjoyed them with my kids now today even. But I never forgot about those fun times with my friends, and I wouldn't let go of the game by the off chance that I could stumble into a wargaming crowd and game again on that scale. With all that being said, while I was looking through the Steam shop on my PC, I noticed that this game, Axis and Allies Online, had been re-released and made in a digital form. It brought back so many memories, and I swore that if I ever got the chance again, I would take it and play it. I did my research after all the time that I had spent not playing it, and found out that there was a new version in the 1942 second edition. Well, my friend gifted me a copy, a friend that we played with originally back so many years ago, and we began to play again with my friends in the Discord community. The game had been updated with new unit placement, some of the territorial and sea changes, but most notably, it didn't have the experimental or prototype upgrades that the revised edition had. That, for some reason, stuck with me all these years. What it would let you do is risk some of your IPC, or money, for a dice roll of getting a 1. And if you did get a 1, you could upgrade different components on your weapons of war. And looking back at it, it seems ridiculous to risk the amount that was asked for to upgrade because they were just a case-by-case variable. But it still stuck with me that not only did each unit have its own stats for movements and attacks and defense, along with unique abilities like submerging submarines, or transports, or blitzing tanks, but they could also be upgraded to be even more resilient or violent weapons. Now that the new version is out and is recreated in the digital space, I can understand why that feature is no longer included. But what I did see was a wonderful representation of a game that I had missed playing for years for a lack of players and a willingness to keep the games going. Thing is, Axis and Allies isn't a game you can just break out like Monopoly or Trouble. It's a game that demands some respect from each player and expects your time, your mind, and the will to win because there are plenty of ways that you can lose the game. There are also plenty of ways that you can improve your odds of winning, though, and that means digging into the numbers and making your combat the most probable for victory. And thus, A&A demands a community of gamers to keep the game alive, its strategies, its history, and its fun. Thus, having the ability to play online with friends is a real godsend for players like me that just don't have the time or the people to have a full playthrough of the game. The reason why it's so remarkable is that it allows for asynchronous gameplay. But what does that mean exactly, though? It means that each player doesn't have to be present at the same time to participate in playing the game. Instead, each player has 24 hours to take their turn whenever their turn is ready, and thus, all that downtime at the table can be cut down. No more waiting around for the bigger nations to drag on their turns. Instead, you can just take your turn when you log in, and when you get the email notification that it's your turn. I wish that Steam would give you a notification that it was your turn though too. And Civilization 6 does this if you decide to play via the cloud save game system, which is entirely the same thing as A&A Online. But I bet that the people at Beamdog will have that integrated at some point soon. They just released the game on iOS. This will really begin to open up the player base as it will be cross-play between clients, and Beamdog has promised that you can log in from multiple clients on the same games. So, if you wanted to take your turn at home before you got to bed on your PC, then you can take your lunch break at the office the next day on your tablet, and you'll be completely fine. I find that this is an amazing concept, and I can't wait for more digital board games to hop in on this trend. I hope it's a trend. One other game that currently does this is Star Realms, a deck building game that perfectly handles the switching between mobile and PC playstyles. With all that being said, as it turns out, I am not that great at A&A Online. I'm sure as you've been watching this, you are questioning my decisions as I've been playing. And I'll hand it to you, I've still got a lot to learn. More than likely, I'll be ending up remaining in the Bronze League and pressing up into Silver or Gold. Currently, I'm rank 154 in Bronze for the Axis powers. I know that there are many more steps for me to learn, and as I play, there are plenty of friends that can help me along the way. Axis and Allies Online has its own official Discord as well, with a ton of gamers and YouTubers that will encourage you in there and speak to you about new tactics, strategies, and battle plans. And they will even explain rules so that you never have to enter a fight blindly. Honestly, I think the guys at Beamdog have done a great job bringing this game to life, and they deserve the full credit for doing something that had to have been very challenging. Overall, I give this game an easy 8 out of 10. There are some improvements that can be made to the UI and Steam notifications that would bring it up to a 9 for me. And when they decide that the game has had enough support, I have been told that they will be introducing other versions of Axis and Allies franchise, like the classic map, the global, or even the versus zombie map would be cool. That would be pretty awesome, but it just takes more players and support. So don't miss out and leave your brothers at arms waiting. Join the ranks and set a course for victory. Buy war bonds. Remember, loose lips sink ships. And we want you to play Axis and Allies Online. See you on the battlefield, Commander. Thanks for watching. It took me a while to get this done. If you want to, press the like button, subscribe for more YouTube content, and consider joining my Discord, where we play this and all sorts of other games. I'll catch you live on Twitch sometime too. Thanks. Bye.